So, the idea was simple, and I think the best ones always are. No rent, no job, and no money. I needed a break from the stress and hustle of modern life. And I'm sure a few of you might relate. So, I decided to put everything on hold, hoping, as we all do, that modern life would agree with my plan. Then, with fear lodged in my throat, the barest of supplies, and 1 foot already on the pedal of a recently assembled touring bike, I kicked off, wondering what life becomes when everything I have known was left behind. And I began, well, to just cycle. For 2 months, I literally just cycled. The idea was simple, but the journey wasn't. For me, leaving the modern world behind meant completely disconnecting from the life I had known. It meant living in a tent, having with me only what my bike could carry, and eating meals in the hands of the elements. But this was in a country I have only recently begun to call home, Scotland. In wild mountains next to gorgeous rivers, in cold winds, this adventure was a comfort. But it was a comfort outside my comfort zone. On the first day, I lay awake. I was unsettled by the noises of the forest, by the sheer cold. But by day 2, I rode through beautiful orchards. By day 2, I fought an entire mountain and slept in peace on the other side. By day 20, I had begun to sing and to fly with arms spread open. On a bike, it can really feel like it. I had danced in stunning turquoise oceans, between yellowing sand dunes with long blades of grass. Then, on a day without food, when my back had arched under the weight of my travels, I dragged myself through soaking rain. And I learned to look up, just to smile. I looked up upon a landscape so barren it was like nothing I had ever seen before. An open emptiness, no trees, no cars. At this point, there was barely a road. By day 30, I had stood at the edge of islands, and to me what seemed the edge of this very world. Metaphors sprung to my mind like never before. I felt myself begin to change and begin to forget this life that I had longed to leave behind. The life I have since returned to, and now standing speaking to all of you, ironically. But back then, my lips remained closed. There's something wonderfully confining about having no one to hear you talk. I could say no words that another would hear. I could not take ideas out of my mind. Instead, silence took them. By day 40, for the first time, I didn't move. I woke in a dream. I raised my arm to my forehead, and in it I felt my one remaining fear, a fever, a sickness. And this was on a day when my food was scarce, my water was even less, and of course I was like 15 miles from civilization, so you can imagine how I felt. I was alone, I was ill, and my mind was fogged by silence. Since day 1, that was the first time I cried. I saw in myself a child reaching for comfort, a child standing at the edge of barren cliffs. And on day 57, I opened the door to my mother's house. I looked in her eyes. I told her of rivers, of mountains, of oceans, of the wind, of all I had seen. I don't think she heard, but perhaps this cannot be spoken. And I don't think she saw, but her eyes, they looked back at someone different.